Our next guest was discharged from the Marines for criticizing President Biden's botched Afghanistan withdrawal. Now he's pointing out that the same level of accountability should be applied to the top commander, General Kenneth McKenzie.
Now, Scheller's saying, in part, in terms of the Afghanistan withdrawal, General Milley is not even a player. It is General McKenzie, to the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, to the President. General McKenzie was there from President Trump to President Biden. It was 100% his authority or his responsibility to have a better plan. Joining us now is former Marine Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller himself and author of Crisis of Command. Thank you very much for joining us. The rest of the title there went on to say, and I can pull it up here because they took it away too quickly. You say, let's see, where was that? How we lost trust and confidence in America's generals and politicians. And that's really your point, that those who were in charge need to be held accountable and are not being held accountable, correct?
That is correct, yes. Thanks for having me on. You stated it in the opening. I believe that the military advisors have a role, and they should have advised better. And when they advised the president and restraints were placed on the plan, they had a choice to either resign or stay in position and execute that plan. Once they made the decision to stay in place and execute the plan with the restraints placed upon them, they are 100% accountable for the plan.
And I was curious, obviously you opposed what they were doing, and you're pointing out essentially the structure of the system, and the strategy behind it is what you objected to. Do you think there's any change in the structure of the system that could be made that would allow other voices like your own to be included?
That's a deep question, Bob. I think you're exactly right. I think the problem is that career officers figure out how to navigate the system, and in navigating the system, they then reflect the values of their bosses, who, as you work all the way up, becomes the political leadership. And then they may not necessarily hold the attributes that are required to win war. Mm-hmm. So how you fix that, I think you start with accountability. So if our primary goal is to inflict violence, to impose our will on another nation through the military arm of foreign diplomacy, that is how we should be evaluated upon. And when we do not live up to that standard, as senior military leaders, they should be held accountable. Now, all of them are very intelligent, hardworking, talented individuals, but through navigating the system, we don't always have the best people in the places to win the wars in the times that we need them.
Do you believe that President Biden was given the wrong information in terms of how the withdrawal should go down, or did he just ignore advice that he should have taken?
Me personally, I don't know if President Biden got the advice from the National Security Council. So I believe General McKenzie and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin briefed the National Security Council, and the National Security Council imposed the desires of President Biden, which was, I want everybody out by September 11th. So the plans that were submitted that required more troops to hold key pieces of terrain like Bagram Air Base were thrown out. So when you watch Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin's testimony, he states that that advice was given to President Biden, but President Biden has stated that he didn't get some of that advice. Regardless, it's almost irrelevant. We know the military leadership submitted plans up to their higher headquarters, the National Security Council and President Biden, and that they asked for more troops. They asked for a specific number that was required to keep Bagram Air Base. They were not given that. And so based on those restraints, they made the decision to hold Kabul airfield, and they overestimated the Taliban's quick withdrawal. So they did not anticipate, obviously, the Taliban to move as quickly as they did. Mm-hmm. And the plan fell apart very quickly after that.
You know, one of the things, I don't know what you see in your future, but obviously someone with your experience might have insight militarily. In the news, of course, we see Ukraine dealing with Russia. Anything that catches your eye there you think the Biden administration should be doing or is not doing?
I think what happened in Afghanistan absolutely empowered our enemies. But I just want to make the point, when a lot of Americans get fixated on the power of Russia or China, their military power is very regionally based, right? So Russia and China can operate on their borders and mobilize and move on their borders, and that's their strength. The United States still has the ability to project military power beyond any other nation that's out there in the globe. And that's why we've been the national leader in military power for the last century, and that the global order has kind of followed suit with the peace and stability that we've been able to provide. So what does that mean? I just think United States has fallen into the trap of looking at other military strengths and downplaying our own strength. The United States still has a lot of strengths, but if it wants to maintain its advantage, it needs to take a hard look at some of the fundamental problems facing the United States. And to your original question, yes, our withdrawal that was done very messily without any accountability has empowered some of our enemies.
Yeah. And it's hard to trust this administration making decisions in terms of what should happen in Russia and Ukraine when you see the horribly botched withdrawal from Afghanistan that resulted not only in the deaths of many Afghans, but also 13 U.S. service members who died there at the Kabul airport. Colonel Scheller, I'm still going to call you Colonel. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.